I pressed accept. I hate the lag on this where it's like you don't know if you accept it. Oh, there you did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that
Oh,
was a great show.
yeah.
We covered, are these things fucking working? I guess not. Um, yeah, great fucking show. Um, Covered a lot of ground. Uh, I think there was so many nuggets dropped, and like Alex came on and just like shook the table with fucking science. And his pigment tracker. And I think that's super dope. What a great tool that can be utilized. I didn't really understand the depth of it. Hey, thanks,
Can you
brother.
talk a little bit about that while I heat this dab up?
Oh man, my mind is like fucking frappéed after that. But basically, he just uses diluted samples and his pigment tracker, which is like a UV spectroscopy. I believe it's UV spectroscopy. Um, to do like a color band detection, so he can actually get like the different pigments in the different like nanometers of concentration. I think I'm probably just butchering that like horribly, but based on the wavelength, he can kind of track what the kind of pigment is, because certain pigments only show up in certain wavelengths. So what a cool device. I didn't know it was possible to use it for water hash as well. That's fucking sweet. I've only really seen it used for like ethanol and heptane dilutions. But yeah, what a cool device. And that guy knows so much, man. Holy, so glad that we pulled him.
Yeah, no, that was the BHO boys showed up in full force, and I
Yeah.
think even Kind had some value there from Wax Plug and his UV tech,
Well,
picking
that
up
was
pigments.
crazy.
Yeah,
Like, like I have shone UV light at like jars of resin before and seen different colors, and I'm like, oh, like I wonder what that's about, and never like really drew that correlation until, and like I saw that video like a week or two ago, and I was like, oh, that's super cool. Like I wonder what that is, and to have him break it down on the show was awesome because I didn't realize, you know, what powders were trapping what to what degree, and how much more selective of a remediation we can actually achieve, um, than we knew about previously, which is incredible. So I think that's what it's going to come down to is just this refinement of knowledge, and shows like us being able to get that knowledge out there.
yeah, man. If if I was a little youngster stumbling on stuff like that, I'd be pretty stoked to be able to absorb all that. So yeah, no, it was a super awesome show. There's a ton to unpack, a ton still to think about. Like I think we got Adam at like 65% brain power,
Yeah,
coming off the flight, and he still contributed a whole heck of a lot. So yeah, no, I think that was a dope show. I'm
yeah.
stoked. I'm stoked
Like,
to have more.
man, appreciate you.
Next one's gonna be, actually, we can drop it now. We've been kind of already talking about it behind the scenes, but next one's gonna be like a solventless diamond episode with MTS Farms, Rackham's, and anybody else
Touch
who you
register.
think of.
Yeah,
So
definitely
yeah,
a rock. Yeah, definitely going to be like a Diamond Tech episode. Um, yeah, it's going to be crazy. Thinking about maybe bringing on one solvent-based diamond dude to kind of just talk about the science behind the polymorphism and how it applies directly to everything that's going on. Because I kind of dropped a couple nuggets on Rackham's after our show, and I know he's been going hard at that. And it's the same knowledge that can be applied kind of unilaterally, um, regardless of the extraction method. And I think that's the best part of this whole cannabis thing is we're kind of working in so many similar regards that we don't need to have this division. We need to have more conversations, kind of like we just had on our show, where we're coming together and creating mutual understanding and learning together. You know what I mean? And then we're growing together. You know what I mean? We're like, this is community. We're not trying to be divisive. Like we're trying to bring everything together and create a larger base of knowledge. And yeah, just blessed the show for the show tonight.
Bro, when we have people on like Simply Adam or like Rackham's or MTS and they're dropping their little diamond tax, I'm like, bro, like
People,
I paid for shit. Like
yeah,
I know people that paid mad money for shit like that, just to be told shit like that in a room. So
yeah,
like I think that every time every once in a while I'm like, damn, you telling them that? That's pretty cool. Like
yeah.
so
No, I
respect to
mean,
those guys. And then it always makes you think, I'm like, yo, what do they know?
yo,
Yo,
get
what up,
Rackham's up here.
Rackhams?
Rackham's.
We're
What
just
up? What up?
talking about you. Your ears are burning. We're talking about the episode that you're gonna be the star of. But yeah, no, when guys like that are coming in and dropping tech, I'm always like, yo, like if you're giving that away, like if Rackham is giving that away, I'm like, yo, what's he got? Like, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
he's either the most selfless dude ever, which is mad respect. What up, Rackhams?
What up, brother?
What up? How
Yo,
y'all doing?
what
Good,
you think
man.
of the
How you
show,
doing?
man?
I didn't get to catch the last half of it, but the first half was pretty dope.
Okay, good. Yeah. No, we were just talking about, all the free tech that guys like you are constantly giving away, and just like, it kind of makes guys who like come from it, who've been in it longer and used to like pay for little tidbits of information, like jump back and be like, damn, he's saying that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, uh,
Yeah, I've had that encounter a couple of times initially when I first started talking about the mechanical separation. People hit me up like, "What are you doing? What
yeah,
are you doing? Why are you doing that? Chill
yeah.
out." It's like, well, I mean, the way that I'm sharing this information is the way that I gain this information. You know,
100%. Yeah,
so it only feels right. There are certain
100%.
techniques, and what are they called? Trade secrets, I guess, if you will, that I still have kept to myself that are super valuable to me. But majority of the information that I share, just like a lot of these other people, like Bird and so on and so forth, it's general knowledge and open information, open source, quote unquote.
100%. 100%. Hey, did you
Yeah, and
play
you
with
get
any of that diamond tech that we talked about last time after the show?
You talking about the fluctuation? Yeah, I've been trying it. I have this Sunday driver jar that I crashed, and I've been doing it. The one question I had for you, I don't know if you want to talk about it here or maybe in private, but the time frame of which it sits at each increment or each level, so to
So
speak.
that's something to play with, and I think it's going to be dependent on your mother liquor. You know what I mean? So like your mother liquor, you know what I mean? So when we're growing hydrocarbon diamonds, it's very rich in butane, rich in terpenes, rich in cannabinoids. We're just trying to cause that separation. With solventless, you're trying to rely on those volatile terpenes, right? To be that mobility and to warm it to a point where you can actually have that mobility in the resin for like to bind with like.
Or
So that's the hard part is dialing in the specific time frame. I actually am working with a master's chemist on this currently, so I'll drop you some back channel knowledge on that. But yeah, it's just and we're essentially doing the same thing, hydrocarbon or or solventless. It's just what we're using in terms of mobility for the cannabinoids to bind with each other. And that also is
totally.
the reason we can cause and grow different polymorphs. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Then I also like listening to that last, I think, podcast before last. I can't remember the guy's name. I think Humphrey was a part of that conversation where you're talking about the
MTS
freeze dryer.
MTS Farms. That
Okay,
guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
He had mentioned that he would take like a jar that he's just crashed, and after it got to a specific point on the heat mat, he'd take it off, leave it at room temp, and then leave it at room temp for a while, and then put it in the fridge, and then the freezer, and then the fridge, then room temp, and then back again. I was wondering about that as well as, and also my big question once again was time frames. How long would someone leave it
For sure.
in those at those temperatures for X amount of time?
Yeah,
And I've been messing with that a couple of times.
it's basically just causing like a viscosity pressure, right? The colder it gets, the more pressure is actually created internally in the resin, which can actually aid in crystal growth. But there needs to be that fluctuation and that mobility in order to kind of get the right not the right climate so to speak. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? The right scenario for optimal growth.
Yeah, and I think with people like myself that only have a clone mat of some sort and not like a controllable HMI type of oven of some sort where you can set that parameter to go up and down. I mean, the heat mat, you can do that. It maxes out at 108 Fahrenheit. You can drop it down and set it to 85 and let it cool down and then bring it back up if you wanted to. But as far as going from like room temp to fridge to freezer and then fridge, then room temp, and then back to the clone mat, those are the temps or the times that I'm trying to figure out, like, how should I leave it for a couple of hours or just 30 minutes or like just until it gets to that temperature.
I think I'll drop you the crystallization curve, and so you can see actually like it is kind of like a time sensitive thing too. So not a fast crash. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to go, what up, Harry? You don't want
Dave's
to go.
coming up.
You don't want to go
Dave's coming
fast
up.
on it.
He's got no
You know what I
choice.
mean? It's not the faster you crash, the more likely you are to get smaller diamonds and more sugar.
Gotcha.
You know what I mean? And the more that you control everything coming, that's when you're actually going to start getting your quality growth. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah, if you guys check out my latest post, I just posted it up about a half hour ago or so. That's probably the chunkiest rosin jam I've made yet. And that was the jar that I mentioned that had been sitting on my clone mat unopened since before Christmas. And the terps were like, I just got some honey banana from Heads That Rolled.
Yeah.
And it smells just like their honey banana, but it's a totally different phenome, totally different cut and genetics. But it's a trip how it changed because the rosin itself in its raw form doesn't smell like that. So I feel like something's to be said for that long-term crash, but also it was a 200-gram jar and about 2/3 of it ended up being sap and about 1/3 of it crashed into diamonds. And I think I just took it too far in the oven is what I ended up doing, farther than like on the cusp. But
it could also have a lot of minors. You know what I mean? It could also have just a bunch of minors that prohibit or inhibit certain growth or certain rates of growth or certain structures at all. You know what I mean? So that's a thing too that a lot of people aren't talking about, is the actual amount of minors and things that prohibit that crystal growth.
Yeah, I noticed that with the GMO that I just crashed. It's real sugary, and it's also made from cured dried material. So I think there's something to be said too in comparison to fresh frozen material or live rosin versus dry cured material and just a regular hash rosin. I think a lot of that THCA is somewhat converted a little bit based off the drying practice. And this was also a 2-week dry with a 2.5-week cure behind it before I actually washed it. So over a month it was drying, but it's still crashing fairly decent. It's just a lot more sugary in a sense than the banana kush that I have, which is whole plant fresh frozen. It's interesting how that all reacts.
Mm-hmm.
Are you finding that same kind of thing, RJ?
Sorry, what?
Are you finding that same kind of experience?
What experience?
Just the
like
racking synthesizer.
Frozen?
So
it's been harder for me personally to get.
For me, like hydrocarbon wise, like I can more control my variables. You know what I mean? I can do my extraction at like -80, and I can like filter out everything a lot like more easily. So like, you know, I can also take it down to like 1 micron or 0.22 microns of filtration. So it's just like I can take things out that like can't be done really in a solventless way. So I can grow diamonds and crystals much faster at a larger, you know, volume. And that just kind of is what it is. Versus when you have the solventless, you have all of the other constituents that I can either selectively take out or, you know, leave in depending on. So I can like, it's just,
you just have a lot more control over your environment with
100%. I can be way more selective. And then like if I had kind of what you're dealing with, like the micro sugars, I would just kind of gently warm it and then see if I can melt a couple of them and try to get them to bind to larger and create like larger structures.
Yeah.
And then that's the whole, like, you know, and this is huge tech to anyone that's listening. This is like big fucking tech. So like We love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. But yeah,
Yeah, so some appreciation. Hit that like button.
Yeah. Yeah, go follow our YouTube. We just had a
But
great episode.
you got to admit though, with the solventless guys, rosin boys, fucking hash makers, just makers in general. I mean, the fact that we've been able to achieve some of these consistencies that solvent people make is pretty outstanding. I
Yeah,
mean,
it's wild.
Rosin Ryan with his initial introduction to introduction with Jam to us worldwide, and then the other cat, Diet Funk. He was
Yeah.
one of the guys that was ended up getting the real big chunky consistency. And I know Covert Extracts is one of the few too, and he did it a lot simpler. He would press his rosin, his whole plant pressed frozen hash, at like 200, 210, somewhere around the 200 mark Fahrenheit, directly into the jar, and take that jar and put it right on the heat mat and skip the oven phase. And he was getting chunkier stuff than sometimes Rosin Ryan and Diet Funk with no oven. I think that means it might be a mixture of just going straight from that high heat to
I
dropping
think
down.
I have a hypothesis for
Mm-hmm.
that. So the terpene separation is happening at such a fast rate that he's actually pressing the THCA for longer. So that's why it's actually able to create those structures. It's because he's actually spending more time physically creating it, which is a super interesting thought. And it's at the higher heat too. So,
yeah, it's interesting. But how the conversation conclude to this evening as far as pigment is concerned? Did anybody come to a conclusion on what the deal is?
So pigment is flavor. Pigment is a flavor. Pigment is a lot of things. Pigment can adversely affect your resin, or pigment can enhance your resin depending on what you're looking for. So it definitely comes down to the lens in which we look through. But yeah, like it was a great show. I mean, I'm still kind of digesting a bunch of it, so yeah.
It was a good show. I think we covered the ground we wanted to, and I think the people who came on wanted the points got expressed, and the goal was to kind of get to a point where it was like, hey, listen, this is factual, this is what we all can agree on, and then there's opinion, right? Because there is like what you have to factor in with the popularity of Van Gyptian, what he's done in Canada, which cannot be understated, is that he did not come to Canada until he was 18 years old, and so the smells, the tastes, all the things that he grew up around, very foreign to what a North American grows up around. And so he was drawn to the resin, and he just followed what he was drawn to. And my belief in the reason that it took off so much in the Canadian traditional market landscape of live resin, and it would pretty much just dominating the scene, is that it was that the aged resin or that Van Gyptian offers delivers a nostalgic, less intense experience when compared to today's, live rosin or diamonds in sauce or whatever it is. And so there are people who, potentially are more sensitive to dabs and not as comfortable taking live dabs or even cured material dabs, that try this activated hash oil or these aged resin products and are more reminiscent of like a calming, shoulder relaxing body high than that visceral, heart pumping, mind racing high that some of us have learned to absolutely crave and love. And so I think that that's what Van Gyptian's been able to do, but ultimately his his abilities and why he's made an impact is because he's followed what he likes, and it's resonated with a group of people, and I commend him for that.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Awesome, guys. Well, another good one under the belt for sure.
Yeah, man.
It was dope.
Yeah.
I'm sure the guy you can probably talk to and maybe see if he's willing to get on the show, whether it's IG or YouTube or whatever. Will be Mark Sheldon. Mark Sheldon.
Yeah, I would love
Yes.
to get Mark Scaldone on.
Sheldon, yeah. He's every time he speaks, I'm always fucking like fully.
Yeah, I
I
caught him
think
on
back in
Clubhouse
the
a
day
couple
he
of
was
good
in
times.
Clubhouse with us. Yeah.
Yeah. We
Yeah.
got him on a
Clubhouse
couple
was a
good
beautiful
panels.
thing back in the day. Yeah.
For like a couple months, it was
It was
epic.
amazing. It was
And
amazing.
then it just, I don't know, it just
Fell apart.
fizzled
Like
hard.
With all of them. All of them seem to do that. I don't know
So-
why IG sticks around.
I know. So talk about when's your hash class coming up, Rackhams? That's coming up pretty soon, isn't it?
Yeah, we actually have. Thanks for mentioning that, by the way. We have Oklahoma coming up here on the second and third,
Nice.
and then we have St. Louis with ice water cultivators alongside. Well, Oklahoma is myself, 918OG, and Nicotine.
Yeah.
And then Touched by Cannabis as well. We're going to be talking about K&F and living soil and breeding techniques and whatnot for hash.
Oh, so it's not just extraction. It's kind of expands
we're
beyond that.
gonna the first day we're gonna try to speak on the history, or at least the last 20 years of hash and rosin up until current time. Nicotine is going to be speaking mostly about that because he's got the most experience when it comes to the knowledge in the last 20 years of our solventless growth. And then we're going to be talking about growing techniques, the separation between growing for flower and growing for hash. That's where Touched by Cannabis will come in. Talking about post-harvest processes, which we'll all pretty much speak upon. I have my SOPs that I try to run with when I'm doing my consulting. And then washing, drying, pressing, post-processing techniques like jam and diamonds, cold cures,
Oh, wow.
heat
That's
assisted
awesome, bro.
cures. And then, and then talking about cartridges as well to end the class with. And then the same concept would be kind of presented with the ice water cultivators class in St. Louis, and that's the 9th through the 11th, I believe, of September. And we got Bird, Mendo Dope Boys, Pez Bros, Heritage Hash Co. We're going to have Cherry Blossom in there as well.
So,
Dude, that'd be
cool.
sick.
Yeah, that's going to be a good
awesome.
one. That's a 3-day event, and it's pretty much the same concept. Going to have Mendo Dope Boys talking about cultivation and things of that nature, and then all of us other presenters kind of broken down into all the other aspects of solventless.
How long are the days? Like, when do you know what the schedule's like?
I think they're pretty much about 7 to 8 hour days for both seminars, the Oklahoma one and Ice Water Cultivators one.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love those, man. Like, it's just like, and then like the thing ends, but like you're people from out of town, you got all your growers and farmers who are like reclusive, who don't get out, they're out. So like they all want to hang out, and like it's like the regen conference where everything's just a buzz for like those couple days, and you're just like, you're staying out late and you're doing stuff that you normally wouldn't do, but you're with all these cool people that you never get to see and really get all in that room. So there's like a super like feeling of specialness. And anytime I go to like one of these events, it's just like, man, like it's so cool to have us all in our rooms, because we're usually just in our grow rooms, right? So, or in our
no doubt. That's one of the cool things about this for me is just I'm surrounded by like-minded people, which I'm typically just in my lab by myself, talking to myself. So
100%.
it's a different change of pace for me as well. And I enjoy it. I mean, it's and the cool thing about these classes too is they're focused around scalability and whatnot, but I also want to put emphasis on the fact that any mom and pop grower or a garage grower or a backyard grower can learn from these classes and take what we teach and share as far as knowledge is concerned, and be able to size that down to fit their situation.
Totally.
It's not one size fits all type deal. It's I mean, it's expandable in that sense. So
Yeah.
that's what I'm trying to get across to most of these people who try to come up to these classes.
Yeah.
Is the fact that you can start in a 5-gallon bucket and work all the way up to a 20,000, gram
Yeah.
Osprey washing machine or something.
Yeah, it's fishing. It's a skill. You can commercially fish and feed your family and create a legacy, or you can just understand how to do it and do it on the weekends when you want to. Like I think that, you know, the more people, and I think it'll push as the years go on, but more and more people are going to start growing, vegetables and growing at home and doing those things. And with that, it's, I've got my flour. What do I want to do with it? I want to process it into hash. I mean, I know a lot of my friends who set up their grow tents. They've got kids, they've got a house, and they've got one grow tent, and they're like, I've grown my flower. Like now, I wanna hang this and harvest it, and or cure it. And I'm like, you need a whole new tent, and they're like, no, I don't have time for that. And so, making hash or being able to put it into the freezer is definitely something I think is a skill that can be used even at a small scale, and it'd be really valued because now you've got something that will sit for a lot longer and is more valuable in the long run. Because one thing that guys in Brads and Chads in Canada still don't understand is that when it's flour, it's a perishable product, and unless you're treating it like a really high value asset and controlling the oxygen exposure, the UV light and temperature, the product's degrading, and it's degrading fast. And these number cruncher bean counters, they're like, they don't want to write it off. They grew it. They saw it on their Excel sheet. It was coming through. It got harvested, and it's worth this much money. What are you telling me? It's not worth that much money.
It makes this much hot dog water.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big things too is getting a lot of growers in these classes too, so they can understand hash and resin and the plant's trichomes and how they're produced. I mean, most growers, to a certain extent,
We got greasy.
It's like, yeah, it's like most growers are kind of naive in a sense when it comes to growing for hash because they grow flour. That's their main.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, but it's just there's a different technique when it comes to inputs and post harvest process and then everything of those sorts.
Yeah.
I mean,
100%, and you see it in the product. You see it in the product.
No doubt.
Hasbro, what's up, brother?
Yeah, we got Pezbro out here with us. Going to be there in St. Louis in September. It's going to be a good one.
We're bringing Pezbro on the show. I was like, when I heard how many good things that Bird had to say about him, like, I honestly didn't know about him before I chatted with Bird, but I looked him up, reached out. It's such a nice guy, and so he's coming on the show in April. So we're super stoked about that, and I I've seen a couple clips with him in it, and I definitely dig his energy.
Yeah, he's one of the first guys that I saw working with the Terminator press, the triple stack, the one that I have currently right now. Terminator just sent me out the triple stack press to mess around with, see how I like it, because I got to use it in Oklahoma class. And so far, so good. I've pressed about a half a pound of hash in less than 45 minutes, half hour, and still had about an 83% return for dry material.